at a moving stage, you can do that. So it has something for everybody, and we can kind of dive into
so it's like just a completely different vibe compared to like other festivals, maybe.
Yeah, it's a city. It's a city, and you go there. If you wish to treat it as a festival, more power to you. But you're going to engage in a social and artistic experiment. But besides that, Lightning in a Bottle is fantastic. One of the best festivals, I think, that's still really gotten big and still kept its heart. You do the classic trip to Coachella here and there to kind of cut your teeth, see what's up. I went during a year when a lot of my favorite artists were playing, and I still got a lot of love for San Francisco, so I have big support for Outside Lands. I think Outside Lands is kind of a cool festival in and of the city, so that's really special too. So,
have you been to you've been to other festivals like Coachella, EDC, or Ultra, or stuff like that?
Never went to the electronic ones yet, but have been Coachella, yeah. But I have with the pure electronic music ones. The one that I went to last weekend in Miami, and again, you get this kind of strange taste of normalcy, especially after COVID. Now that I'm recovered,
really strange taste of normalcy. Like nobody's wearing a mask there. Like it feels like you're in a different world.
For sure, it's there's kind of a stupid joke. No, there's no COVID in Miami, but at least people are acting like that, right? It depends on how much you trust the data coming out of the sort of local offices. But we've been we have pretty good outcomes considering the case numbers, even without very stringent lockdowns. So it begs the question of what's the right approach. But all that being said, that was a great question to have before we had vaccines. Now we're post-vaccines, we're beginning to distribute those. Best thing to do is get as many of these damn things out there to everybody who wants them, and then get people back to normal, get businesses open back up. So I am on slightly more of the aggressive timeline here, maybe a little bit more of the libertarian kind of direction on this, that's kind of the direction that I'm hoping for.
What do you think of that though? Like in terms of Miami's approach to the whole thing, like do you think it's wise and prudent to act like COVID just is a normal everyday illness and go about everything and do things normally, or do you think people should be taking it far more seriously?
Sure. Well, I'm going to take this perspective from the U.S. is its own petri dish of sorts, or even the world is its own petri dish. Everyone's coming up on an existential threat of some sort. The threat being the unknown, right? What is COVID? How do we go about it?
Right.
From a perspective of their philosophical grounding, right? So if you are perhaps it was politicized in America, which is kind of the unavoidable like reality of answering this question about Florida or California, for example. And you've got a pretty open lifestyle in Miami and Florida, and you've got a pretty closed one in California. And I came from California to Miami, right, with a little stop in Europe in between. So the you watch how people vote with their feet as an interesting example of what people think about this, right? There's you want to see how that actually affected people. You look at the seats lost in the House by California. There was a decrease in the population, an increase in California and Texas populations, right? That's those people are coming from somewhere, and now that's purely like a high level view. In terms of the position of COVID, I think it was the more we know about it, I think the more courageous we can be in our approach to it. If I had the magic wand, vaccinate anyone who wants it, especially the elderly or at-risk populations. Progressively, as soon as you can do that, move down to anyone who will absolutely take the vaccine. And then start opening up things to limited capacity and then to full capacity over time. The thing that's lost in the arguments around COVID so far, I think, is whether or not there's an emotional toll on the costs of, say, having a business shut down, on being secluded from one's friends, on not being able to be face to face with people. Realities of our world right now. but they're much higher cost than I expect people are working in. So I'm a bit mixed. I'm ambivalent about it. Right now, I prefer this, but I'm also not an at-risk population. So I would definitely put this in front of each individual to decide for themselves. But so far, I personally, in my state of life, my state of health, I'm a fan of what Miami's doing, what California's doing less so.
Yeah. I feel like it's been way politicized, like in the US in a really bad direction. It's gotten to the point where like the whole vaccine thing's becoming like a religious zealot, like movement where you like need to take it, or it's like, or if you don't have the conversation, it's like an issue. Like I know in some states, they're even mandating like children over like 14 or 15 to get the vaccine just to go to school. Like, I don't know. I feel like politics is kind of starting to push this in like in a really weird direction where it's like almost getting maybe a little too out of hands. I don't know. Some states like Texas and Florida, like I'm happy that they're kind of opening it up and saying, screw it, because, you know, we've been in this for a while and you need the economy to start turning at some point, right? You need to be able to do normal things and develop immunity and all of that and give people the choice of what they want to do. I mean, I guess that's from my libertarian perspective as well. Let the people decide what they want to do. But it's like other states are like going the complete opposite direction, like locking down really hard again, telling you what you can and can't do, being like overly like intrusive in terms of what you do, in terms of handling it. I don't know. I just feel like the situation's messed up in America.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. You know, this interesting argument you made about how we got here, and the here I'm describing is the sort of politicization of everything. You know, we could go down that rabbit hole. It's a deep one, but I'll say I don't think it got any better during COVID, because, you know, for example, sports basically shut down, right? Your opportunity to get out of the house shut down. Like people's hobbies shut down. People are looking for some degree of conflict, nonetheless, human nature. And the political theater became one of the first, you know, replacements available to people when there really wasn't any other option. So it certainly hasn't gotten better over COVID. And so it's very natural that it, you know, got you know, ground into the meatballs, I guess.
Yeah, when you can't pack a stadium with fans and have that, you know, culture aspect of America, the whole sports culture be there, when the NBA is in a bubble. Like, I don't know, it's just not the same.
Sure, I do agree with you there. Yeah. Are you into sports yourself? I'm actually curious, you know, kind of like what hobbies you got there as well.
Yeah, man. I played a lot of football growing up as a kid, and did track and field and wrestling and a little basketball here and there, and huge football fan, obviously. So it's like devastating to see stadiums completely empty for the most part in most of the country, and watching teams play, and just feels like it's not the same. It's like watching a scrimmage or like a spring football practice or game or something like that. It just doesn't feel the same. It's like, I don't know if your team's actually playing as hard, or are they motivated? You got all the opt-outs and the players just entering for the draft early, or just not wanting to play, period. And I don't know. I just didn't like the whole aspect around football, especially last year. And then, you know, just sports in general, it just kind of sucked. Like, because that's like America's culture, right? Is sports. So not being able to have that, it's like, I feel like people like get even more divided and even more upset and angry. We have nothing that like kind of brings us together to enjoy. So yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, I feel you there.
You're a sports guy?
Hopefully back soon.
Yeah.
I'm more into sports that sports with a projectile or ball of some sort. Basketball, football, hockey, I'm crap at. I'm just terrible. Like, I don't have the coordination. But sports that require control over the body, whether that's, you know, diving or surfing, I'm really big into snowboarding and big into martial arts. Nice. Love that. I'm all about it.
Nice. I think I've tried martial arts a couple times in my life. That definitely requires a lot of the body. Same thing with like snowboarding, because I'm a big skier. But yeah, we could probably talk about sports all day. But my audience is probably like, what the hell's going on? This is not about blockchain.
Shoot. Yeah, we can dive right in.
Yeah. Tell me, but first, like, tell me a little bit about your background. So I'm sure my audience is like,
Yeah.
who is this Michael guy? Like, well, what's he
Yeah,
doing here talking about sports and COVID? So
sure.
tell me, yeah, tell me
You
about
bet. You bet.
yourself and backgrounds and yeah.
Yeah, let's start there. So I was born in Poland. Little young kid to a computer scientist dad and a teacher mom. So I got kind of the both left brain, right brain kind of side of the lifestyle.
Mhm.
And simple life. But we ended up moving to um, New Jersey at first when we first got in, and we were a poor family. We basically got started by um, just getting whatever work you'd find. And as we kind of settled in a little bit more of the immigrant mentality, which took my shoulder, brought us to some of the right places. Ended up getting an internship here, internship there, doing stuff in diplomacy when I was young, then working in advertising, eventually ending up working in tech. And that's where I found the right mix of like, hey, we're doing the right thing and we're doing it at the right speed. And I really sunk my teeth into tech. That was my first religion of my own choosing at the time, the sort of startup religion. I went to all the meetups, I got the shirts, I got the business cards, and I wanted to do one of my own very badly. I was studying abroad in college. I was studying international marketing and got my first taste of startups at a startup weekend. We got, a second place that told me, we got to do this thing for real, guys. And we ran with that for a little while. I got, enough done in Shenzhen when I was kind of studying there and language immersion, all that kind of stuff on this startup that eventually an investor from that area right after college, I was clean out of college, just finished, said, hey, that startup you guys are working on, you guys want to take that a little more seriously, over in Shanghai? And so I basically have been back and forth between China and the US during school. That was kind of my major, international business. And I eventually said goodbye to my American life and moved to Shanghai to work on this startup. I've told this story before, but it felt like putting rocket fuel into a beat up Buick or something. It was the wrong type of fuel for the job, and we realized very quickly this is not something we wanted to work on. This isn't really a good project for us or a really good team composition for us. We all had different dreams, and so we shut it down. And I went on this sort of journey of trying to figure out what to do with my life and work next. And that's when I basically did I took a very interesting path to crypto, doing first info products, selling books and podcasts and stuff like that for this really interesting entrepreneur. And then that got me recruited to become the editor-in-chief of Startup Grind. Startup Grind it's a huge startup ecosystem and community, mostly known for their events and conferences, but also has a very healthy media footprint at this point. Mm-hmm. And I basically, stumbled into building that. Blood, sweat, and tears, 3 years of work, and we kind of built a new publication there. And I eventually left to try to start my own thing, which ended up becoming a marketing agency that focused on crypto with, a few failed attempts and starts and stops in between.
Yeah.
And that was about like 2017. So I basically rode the huge wave of crypto, doing ICOs and marketing and a bunch of other kind of stuff. And eventually got recruited to work at one of my clients and dove headfirst into DeFi.
Nice. Well, was there something specific that made you want to get into blockchain and crypto, or was it just kind of by happenstance in getting that into that position?
Yeah, sure. The big thing that I'm really curious about in crypto has everything to do with what I'm sort of interested in day to day, which, I may be a little like complicated, whatever, but psychology, philosophy were always the things that I found really interesting. How do people interact? Who are they? How does that work? And ultimately, how do you influence them to be better? How do you influence yourself to be better? Crypto struck me as the economic layer, right? You find the right, philosophical standpoint. Let's say, hey, everyone should own their own data, right? Or let's say, the economic lever should be a little bit more in the favor of all instead of the favor of the few, right? Mm-hmm. You pick your philosophy, you build a protocol around it, and now the philosophy is directly tied to the psychology of human beings through this economic lever of tokens, the ability to back that project, contribute to that project, be enriched by that project as it succeeds. So it was the missing piece between an idea and that idea being, adopted by the populace as a belief. And so that struck me as just incredibly interesting, incredibly sort of opportunistic. I was looking at the same time at other edge tech stuff. I was looking at space as something I could go into as an industry, AI, but if we're being honest, nowhere was my skill set most valuable than in crypto.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, you've mentioned DeFi a few times as well. Like, is that something that interests you the most, or that has like really caught your eye? Because I know it's like incredibly popular right now, especially as a niche, just getting bigger and bigger.
Totally. Yeah, sure. So when we say DeFi, we think of decentralized finance, which basically would be, the unbundling of a bank, right? And doing some piece of what the bank does better, whether that means it's more lucrative for the users, or it's more transparent for everyone participating, or you're able to accomplish something that would otherwise be impossible due to regulation or speed or cost otherwise in standard banking sector. And my gosh, like there's like reasons why it's important to do, just because, hey, this will give more people economic opportunity. And there's reasons why it's just fun to do, because it's just like such an exciting ecosystem to be part of right now, because everything's moving so fast. So you're standing on the intersection of both like exciting and important, being in DeFi, I think. And I've loved it since I really started getting into it. I'm in it personally. I manage a small personal portfolio of investments in DeFi tokens, as well as DeFi yield farming opportunities. So I move my money around and try to find ways to make it grow, mostly in sort of crypto in that regard. And then I also work full-time by day on a reasonably successful DeFi protocol called Truth Cartel, which does credit modeling and collateral-free loans, mostly like big institutions. So we just took that piece from banks, we put it on the blockchain, decentralized it so that we wouldn't have to, be responsible for every component of it. We handed off the keys to the community, and now you're running, tens of millions of dollars in loans after launching in November to pretty big companies. And the rewards are going right to the lenders. They're not going to the quote unquote bank. We took them out. So you can make some fat returns, 50, 60% on your money, just for holding it in there per year. But no risk, of course.
Yeah, when you say collateral-free loans, like what do you mean exactly? So every time I think of loans in the space, it's like everything's collateralized.
Exactly. Right. So think about your credit card, right? Your credit card is an uncollateralized loan for 30 days, right? You have a credit limit. Let's say your credit limit is $30,000. You can spend any amount under that, and so long as you pay it off before the end of the month, you're chilling. You're all set. And that's what we're basically trying to bring on chain. Now, we're not trying to do it for retail users like you and me. We're doing it for big institutions like banks lending to banks, or the government lending to banks. We're talking, 10K minimum. Right now, 10 million maximum, but we're on track to start loaning out up to $500 million over time. We have borrowers who want that. And the interesting thing is, it was never possible to do this on blockchain because you would be having to sacrifice something. You sacrifice decentralization, for example, and you have some companies who are doing this kind of stuff that are centralized entities. I'm not going to name names, but they're pretty popular. You could sacrifice privacy, meaning the borrowers, for example, would have to be de-anonymized and open to the public. And you could also sacrifice scalability, but in this case, you don't necessarily want to scale to such a big size just yet, because there is risk with scale. So let's just take one of those two. There's companies doing it in a centralized fashion. We decided to do it in a decentralized fashion, but we had to remove the veil of anonymity from the borrowers, right? And we had to have enforcement. right? So whenever a borrower comes on the platform, they basically have to do three things to lower the risk of them running over the money and no one knowing where they went. They have to reveal the veil of anonymity, and they do that by completing a standard, know your business thing. Send us some due diligence materials, like how leveraged they are, who they are, how much long they've been in business, that kind of stuff, right? They lift the veil. It's no longer private, right? Just like going to a bank to get a loan. The next thing you got to do is basically get approved by the community. So now it's almost as if, and it isn't, but it's almost as if the people who hold this token that's tied to our platform, TRU, suddenly make decisions about, hey, this guy, yeah, they're pretty cool. I saw their materials. I know them from Twitter. I like their founder. Let's give them a thumbs up. Yeah, let's let this guy take out 10 million bucks at a 15% rate or something. That feels good to me. And the last thing is they have to sign a lending agreement. So that if anything was to hit the fan, they're going to get pulled into court. And that'll happen publicly. So they lose a ton of reputation, which matters for an institution, doesn't matter so much for an individual who just made $1 million by running away. And it definitely matters that they'll get pulled into court because they can't just disappear. Their entity is structured somewhere, there's liable partners. It will most definitely go through collections. And so we actually go ahead and collect the money. So we made a concession of privacy, but we made a big trade in terms of decentralization. That's made it a lot more lucrative.
Is this mostly like what you do mainly, or is it Truth Cartel, or is this like all kind of tied in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, Truth Cartel was basically the agency that got me the job in the first place. Trust Token was a big client at the time, and they just needed some leadership on the marketing side. I joined them in about a year and a half ago or so, as of this recording, and we were at the time known for our stablecoin. It's a $1 billion TUSD stablecoin at this point. But marketing commodities isn't that interesting. You might as well be, come up with the campaign "Got Milk," but for stablecoins, right? They're all the same. You're basically marketing a dairy product. It's like just like commodity. It's everywhere. Right. And then we decided we wanted to do more. We decided to go after DeFi. We had a really good reason to do that, and that became, an incredible opportunity for me. So I jumped on board with that. I still run the agency on the side. I do DeFi project marketing mostly. We do some stuff with NFTs, NFT marketplaces, and that kind of stuff. We do some consulting and advising, but it's basically, Truth Cartel is just a place for me to handle all my projects. And then Trust Token is where we're really building the future, many hours a day across a whole bunch of really great people. So best of both worlds, mostly that. As of the last month, I started doing angel investments as well. So starting to put a little bit of money earlier into these companies. Back in the day, it was just, throw a few bucks after an ICO. Now it's like, okay, you got to be, verified and credentialed, and you have to be a accredited investor. So, a little more work, but still really cool opportunities in space. So I use Truth Cartel for that as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a really fun line of work. Really does, especially with how exciting the space is, and how fast it's growing. What's your portfolio look like? You mentioned that you got yourself a little bit of a DeFi portfolio, right? Is it like a bunch of swaps, like Uni, Pancake, and Sushi and whatnot, like all the food ones, or is it like some of the other tokens that are like related to DeFi?
Sure, great. Such a good question. I love kind of cutting this stuff up, and I'm pretty happy to be pretty open about this. I'm very over leveraged in our own token, TRU, and I really believe in it. I hold it, I use it, I vote with it in governance. So a lot of my portfolio is that, and I've staked my TRU, and I'm making great returns on it on the protocol. So that's been fantastic to me. That's already changed my like how I make income right there. And so the biggest reason to hold TRU for me is just because I'm working on it. But like, if I believe in it and it creates these amazing yields, I'd be a fool not to. I'm also holding a bunch of Ethereum. I'm huge into Ethereum. I think Ethereum is genuinely the future. And hold maybe half as much in Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's great, but I think Ethereum is the future.
Why do you think Ethereum is the future?
Yeah. Well, so far, because that's where the entire ecosystem of crypto has been built, right?
Mhm.
You can argue, very substantively that there are great chains out there. There are great layer one chains. I'm personally a big fan of Avalanche, Algorand. I think Solana is doing really incredible things. Polkadot has some really interesting solutions. There are other ones that I also like. I won't go all down the whole list, like Near Protocol and so on. But there's a lot of really great people there working on some really substantive technology, and yet, it's how do you catch up with Facebook, right? How do you catch up with the Apple iPhone store, right? There's such a lock-in to some degree right now on Ethereum. So much innovation is happening on Ethereum, and optimizations to scale it, like the optimism updates that will improve the gas fees and stuff are coming as well. That will make it a lot more easy and cheap to use. But I think the future is kind of already baked in. That's not to say I'm not hedging my bets. I'm holding, some Luna, I'm holding some Algorand, exploring Polkadot and Solana. But it is my opinion at this time that the shall we say chain wars will kind of pan out in this kind of like hybridized way. The first thing is that there's going to be specialty chains designed for particular use cases, right? Or at least designed for generalizable use cases that have become popular for a single use case. Let's say Dapper Labs NFTs, right? Let's say, Solana for trading with the high throughput is amazing, and they have the right, maybe team for it. A blockchain that's going to win the gaming and gambling side of things, for example, it's going to be the best place for that. The jury is out on what those use cases are and which chains will win them, right? But I do genuinely believe that there will be like a core chain, you might say, a core OS with these other layer one chains that will be specialty use cases for particular things that Ethereum just isn't built and specialized for, perhaps. It doesn't have to be the best for everything. It has to be the best for the most things, to be a petri dish, such that those things can have some outgrowth. And then I think the next thing will be interoperability. Now, interoperability will mean that you could jump between chains super easy. And I think it'll be easier and easier over time, and it'll be wrapped on some beautiful UI, so you won't even know that you're doing it. But when that happens, the chain with the most growth and adoption at the core, with the biggest developer community, with the biggest footprint, will be the one who will build and then bridge from, right? Mm-hmm. So I think interoperability and just how far ahead Ethereum is, and also that it's pretty great for most things, but won't be the best for everything, and we'll have other layer ones for that. That's why I'm so bullish on Ethereum. I think it's it's the virtual computer of the world. It's the new internet. It's a backbone of this whole movement that we're experiencing right now.
I apologize. So many people trying to get my attention all the time.
Now's the moment.
Oh my God.
I'll just jump through a few other tokens that I'm excited about while we're doing this. I'm definitely excited about your DeFi stuff. I think Wired, which is kind of like a money market, like it's a bit like a intelligent investor, like your Charles Schwab intelligent investor thing. Is pretty great. It's like the DeFi Bitcoin, you could say. Into a lot of the big DeFi projects like Aave, Link, I think has got an amazing community. And then Uniswap and SushiSwap, big holder of those and playing with those ecosystems. And then, I've got a bunch of stable coins that I'm using to farm with, to earn yields with and stuff like that. A handful of other, crap coins that I won't mention here. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a pretty good portfolio. Heavy TRU, heavy DeFi, heavy Ethereum, Bitcoin, with a smattering of, long shots in between.
Nice. What do you think about Uniswap? I know they got their big version 3 rollout happening tomorrow. I know a lot of people are excited about it, and it potentially being, like the world's or one of the world's largest, like efficient liquidity platforms in terms of scale and where they can take it. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or are you watching it closely to see what happens?
Yeah, sure. When they first made the announcement, this was so complicated that they had to they had to literally invent new like liquidity pool nomenclature to be able to describe how this works, right? And then as I, read a few more threads about it and that kind of stuff, it became really interesting. So the thing that I think is most interesting about what they're launching is the ability to set your price bands for liquidity. Now, I'll do like a tiny briefest explanation, but basically the way that the crypto marketplace works is you have, you help create liquidity in the market by submitting, two sides of the trade. You want to maybe earn a little bit of money on every time a transaction is made between USDC and ETH. You take 50-50 ETH USDC, you put them up on, let's say, Uniswap or SushiSwap, and then you basically make a percentage of every trade, right? Now you're exposed to the underlying assets, you're exposed to the balance between the underlying assets, you might suffer a permanent loss. We can go way deeper on that, but it's fairly technical stuff. The thing that Uniswap did that's super interesting is allow you to basically create almost like liquidity providing stop losses, right? It says, hey, I'll provide liquidity, but only if the price of the asset is between this band, right? And I think this will make for really awesome stablecoin pools, because you can set that you want the band only to be between 0.99 cents and 1.01 cents. So that's going to be super efficient, stablecoin liquidity, which is great. It's going to, so suddenly Uniswap is competing with Curve, right? You got to watch out for that. That's interesting. And then what I do think it'll do is it will also create the barrier to entry to becoming an LP, a liquidity provider, is going to rise, because the best LPs are actually going to be using bots. They're going to be, setting very tight bands, moving their bands. It's going to make it a little harder to just, throw your money into a liquidity pool and hope for the best, which, I think would be good for the ecosystem, but it will definitely start pushing people out a little bit of the same way that I think ASIC miners pushed out some people. When you can mine with your graphics card and you're a gamer, great, make a few bucks during the evenings when you're going to sleep or something. But when you have to have an ASIC miner to mine the next hot coin, you're just blown out of the water. So I think it's going to make LPing a little bit more of a specialty activity. But I hope I'm wrong. I do hope I'm wrong. I think it's exciting. It was hard to understand, and I think now the world's watching. What's Uniswap going to do?
So you think if that goes well for Uniswap, it's going to like grow its market share and like raise that bar quite a lot? Or do you think other swaps out there are able to kind of keep up with that?
I think the DEX ecosystem is so ruthless. It's so competitive that they're, every DEX is trying to do something to kind of level up on each other. And then they're also, shall we say, borrowing the best features from each other. Uniswap did a very interesting thing with this update. This is something that most people did not catch. They did not put their code under a very standard creative license. They put it under, it wasn't just purely open source. It was under the kind of license that would allow them to sue anyone who copied, to pursue them or cease and desist or whatever. Anyone who copied them, I think within a 1 to 3 year period or something. I don't know the exact details, but that was a nice little defensive play. I think that this update will be very good for certain pools. I don't think it's going to steal, hype coin farming from PancakeSwap. I don't think it's going to steal the simply crazy set of features that SushiSwap has. SushiSwap does so many things, lending and onsen, which will give you more rewards and all this kind of fun stuff. I think you are going to start seeing these DEXs differentiating a little bit more, simply just then instead of just copying each other's features and just being aggressive on marketing and incentives. So I'm inclined to say this is good for Uniswap. I'm inclined to say it's good for DEXs, generally speaking.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting when it rolls out. I know how much hype is behind it right now, and it's definitely kind of fun to watch. It's such a cool space too, just being able to have a decentralized platform where you don't have to rely on people necessarily, and get the same type of resources, monetary resources that are hard to get just traditionally. So I don't know, it's a really fun, interesting space in blockchain that's like creating a really good use case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me actually ask you a little bit more about how you're dabbling in crypto. Are you more so trying to invest, trade, actually build, market?
Yeah, I'm purely an investor. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a portfolio through the company, and the company owns a bunch of different stuff, everything from just hard crypto to different digital assets to virtual land to various NFTs, you name it. Like, it's just a wide scope of things, trying to stay balanced in areas we think will do really well. Like DEXs are another one, like loading up and things like Uniswap and Pancake and Sushi, just because we know the direction it's going and where it'll end up. So it's very diversified, but in very specific niches that are hot right now, just because those are the ones that are probably going to see the biggest growth over the next year or so.
Sure.
Actually kind of leads into my last question too. I was going to ask you, what do you think the rest of 2021 is going to look like? Because it's kind of an interesting point in the market where there's a lot of stuff that's been flat for a couple months.
Yep.
But there's other things that are like really taking the limelight, especially Ethereum, where even Bitcoin is completely flat too. Right. So I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I love.
If you looked at it, what your thoughts might be.
Sure. I mean, I love to see Ethereum rip. It's great for everybody for the most part. It's the tide that lifts all boats. I want to get us into some of your sort of investment pieces here too. But my take right now is that, generally speaking, about crypto, I think it has macro cycles and then micro cycles. Macro cycles will be bear bull market, right? Micro cycles will be what is the current hype trend. And I think, DEXs were the hype trend for a while. We moved through a whole bunch of them recently. I think we're coming past the tip of the NFT hype cycle. I think we might be moving into a hype cycle that will prioritize DAOs as interesting, or that might prioritize additional, institutional investment. We had a bit of institutional investment hype cycle a little ways back when everyone was putting Bitcoin on their treasuries. Beyond that, I'm actually curious to see the hype cycle that we would certainly benefit from is credit. Like, credit lines would be one. Like, the idea of credit on the blockchain will unlock a whole bunch of stuff. And so I think TrueFi is pretty early there. So we're just crossing our fingers for when it's our turn. So from like a microcycle, I think, NFTs are probably going to be very susceptible to any sort of bear activity, like any bearish activity. I think they're going to start to get hit pretty hard. I think that they were eventually in a big bullish cycle because there was so much free money in DeFi, especially, that when you run out of Lambos to buy, then the next thing you want is a sexy image for your Twitter profile.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that NFTs will actually, you're already seeing that based on how much activity is happened over the last months. There's a real downward cycle since the sale of two very hot CryptoPunks and the sale of the Beeple project that definitely put the wind out of the NFT sales. It seems DeFi is picking back up. It seems that there's a lot more layer one chain wars happening right now, which is great because that means a lot more investment in marketing, a lot more investment in ecosystem development. So the chain wars are, I think, a good thing as a whole, especially when interoperability is at play.
Yeah.
I'm definitely seeing infrastructure improving and developing and kind of getting adoption, whether that's Storj, or it's Filecoin, having finally big launches this year. Another big project that I love is Akash Network, which does cloud compute. They've been doing pretty well recently as well. So I'm seeing infrastructure play out in a really important way. I think more of the world will move on to infrastructure over the end of the year. I'm watching for when that sort of like that bullish bearish sort of signal turns for a longer period of time. And right now it just seems like whenever there's a bit of a bearish dip, there's just a lot more fire in the furnace. There's just a lot more enthusiasm and energy. And I'll repeat what I hear from some of the folks that I follow on Twitter, who have been in the industry for even longer than I have. That this time is different. That this is, in the beginning it was hype. Now there's hype still, but it's mixed with adoption. You're seeing MetaMask wallets grow. You're seeing people asking about how to actually use the Ethereum, how to stake it. The Coinbase IPO definitely helped us out to bring it to the mainstream. So I'm really cautiously optimistic. I've been through bear cycles, long ones. And I think I've seen, a few things like the macro and the micro elements. And I am inclined to say that a lot has happened to put a lot of sustainability behind this push, despite how much froth you might get. You get the bounce, right? I look at some of the yield farming rewards as like, okay, this is just outrageous. This is not going to sustain itself. But then I look at some of the things that people are building that are really beautiful, simple, elegant. Props to Luna, for example, on the ecosystem they're building. I think it's really beautifully designed and really well fit together. And I'm like, wow, you know what? This is kind of happening. So all in all, I'm optimistic long term. I think that a lot of like narratives have yet to play out in this bull cycle. If I'm going to when I prepare to see a more conservative cycle play out, what I'm doing is I'm moving more money to stablecoins, putting those stablecoins into earning opportunities. If I'm very bullish, I'll convert those stablecoins back into Ethereum, dump it into whatever hype coin I think is really interesting, and LP. Right. So I'm kind of playing in the DeFi space in that regard. But I got that not enough dollars to buy the dip problem. So my portfolio allocation is probably speaking worlds about how I feel about it.
What do you use to gauge whether the market, is really in a bull cycle or a bear cycle, or is, dead and quiet? A lot of people use Bitcoin as a metric. Some people use Ethereum. Some just use the narratives in the space. Is there anything you look at in particular that helps you kind of gauge what direction everything's going, even if it's at a micro level?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I think I would put it into a few categories here. So the first one is technical indicators, and then for that, there's a technical indicator I really like called Market Cipher. Pretty intelligent way of seeing what the trend line is. And then another one that I really like is the Burb indicator from the Burbnesk folks, a fellow Polish guy who's just a very sophisticated technical trader with a huge following, who's designed something really, really intelligent, in my opinion, for the reading indicators. So there is some of this technical indicator content where I'm actually, trying to suck that up, and I get that, typing to my phone, hey, the sentiment has changed, the technical sentiment has changed. Maybe change your bots from trading to bullish to bearish, whatever it is. And so technical indicators, number one. But hey, I'm not sophisticated enough, nor do I have enough time to actually read them on a particular coin myself. I will read an amalgamated report of Market Cipher and the Burb indicator as a way of getting sort of my PA side satisfied, like my brain.
Yeah.
To satisfy my heart, you could say. I make sure to, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm on Twitter, posting, reading, interacting, and I have a pretty good list of folks that I engage with and I track. Frankly, they're mostly anonymous investors and traders. Various animals, memes, couches. At this time is really kind of the way. And I get a sense of their sentiment. I get a sense of what they're shilling. I get a sense of when they're bullish, bearish. I know well enough personally that I might, hit him up and say, hey, what are you thinking about, things turning around a little bit in December? This proposal that we got for additional cap gains, it's not going to go into effect anytime soon. It's a little performative. I think it was a great time to buy the dip. Okay, great. Am I thinking what you're thinking? Okay, great. Let's buy that dip. And then last is just a little bit of the activity I have in my workplace as well as with my other trader friends. We'll have a little channel. We'll, see how they're, one guy's trading options, the other guy is, trading stocks. I'm over here in crypto. We're telling each other what we see in the market beyond crypto, right? They're my pulse for like outside crypto market. So those three indicators for me: it's technical, social, and then sort of in-depth community centric from crypto, like the people in front of the pack. They give you a pretty good outlook, which isn't to say I always make money, but it's a pretty good, I think, way to cover your bases.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Before we wrap it up, where can people find you on Twitter? Or are you mostly on Twitter,
sure.
or where are you?
Twitter online is the best possible place. I got a funky last name, Gasiorek. It's Polish, and you're gonna spell that for my Twitter handle. It's Gasiorek M, and that's spelled GASIOREKM. And that's where, I dump a bunch of my thoughts and dump a bunch of links. We can find all the other links to the world about me. You can find links to the agency, the kind of clients I worked with. If you guys need any marketing help, whatever, you can tap me there. But these days, I'm probably more interested in actually doing investing than marketing advising. It's good enough time in my career where I want to actually work with great projects. Maybe ones who have the technology and the team and the sort of economic model, but maybe don't have the marketing. And I would love to just help them take it all the way to success. That's kind of where I'm thinking about now. That's what people should definitely reach out to me for, to get some cool ideas.
You should change your first name to ETH, and then you can be ETH Gasiorek. That'd be a cool fun little pun there.
That's actually kind of funny. Actually, that Gasiorek.eth would be a nice way to have a little tag. That's pretty clever.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty cool one.
Let me actually ask, while we're wrapping up here, maybe you could share your portfolio a little bit with us, whether it's the companies or your own. It sounds like you guys are very diversified, and you're diversifying not just in different tokens and theses of tokens, you're just diversifying different assets, virtual real estate, NFTs and what have you. Could you tell me a little bit about how you guys have chosen to, allocate your portfolio and some of the things that you're seeing are hot right now?
Yeah, I actually get this question asked a lot, so it might be a good time for me to kind of dive into it for a second. But I look at it from two different ways. Like there's a profit perspective, and then there's, I guess, a narrative perspective. So from a profit perspective, what I'll try to do, I guess this kind of turns me into a bit of a swing trader or sometimes even a day trader, depending on what's going on. But I'll look for something that's going to move, 10%, in this kind of market, 10% is easy to find, relatively easy. So if you have enough capital put down in the right position and you can find a 10% move and you can capture 5, 6, 7% of the 10% and you give yourself a buffer and for when it comes back down and you think you should get out, then generally you can make pretty good money, just as long as you have a sizable amount of capital and you're paying a lot of attention. So from a profit perspective, that's what I generally try to do. I try to find different opportunities, what's popular, what's moving, and then I group those together into one category, and then I'll trade and profit based on that when I need to, or when I feel like I need to. And then from, I guess, a narrative perspective, I look at all the different possible and existing niches that are growing quickly in the space, like DeFi, for example, decentralized storage, or staking or yield farming, on and on and on and on. Like I look at those different niches and I ask myself, what are the top ones in that space? Which ones are the best competition so I can hedge against myself? Because even when I'm losing money, I still want to be winning in some sense. So sometimes I like to hedge against what I initially think anyways. So I'll find a niche. Let's say it's DeFi. Let's say I invest in Uniswap. I'm probably going to invest in its closest competition, which could be Sushi Swap or Pancake Swap or something else that pops up. But also look at it from a technical perspective, also from a TA perspective, like where the technology's at, how good is the team, who's on that team, are they more or less hype driven? Are they more or less very open about their developments and what's going on? Take Cardano and Charles Hoskinson, for example. Charles Hoskinson is very well known, but he's also very vocal, very outgoing, and talks about, not just Cardano, but everything else they do with IOHK and, his life too. And you start to really feel for the team. And I think that's part of the reason Cardano has done so well, is he's been very open about the project and honest. And then there are others that are well known, but that aren't as open in talking about what's going on, or they don't get as much done. So I won't name names on that perspective, but look
after the show.
Yeah, but looking at all those different areas, you can kind of start putting different groups and categories together of what will play out really well, and maybe as short as 6 months, maybe as long as a couple of years. And that's generally where I take my longer positions. So the last 2 years, we've definitely done well with that, especially with NFTs too. There's some NFTs that we've bought for a couple $100 that we've sold like north of 10, 20 grand easily. And it's just shocking, like some revaluation on crypto art and virtual lands and stuff like that. And that's really just scratching the surface of what you can eventually do with an NFT. And I think the most exciting part about that is it's all Ethereum driven right now.
Yep.
And at some point you'll have these, chain wars, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, right.
They're going to step in, and then there's going to be legit competition for Ethereum, for better or worse. Either Ethereum is going to grow and thrive in that environment, or it's going to lose market share. And that's just kind of how competition works in a free, decentralized, competitive space. So I don't know. We look at it from all those different perspectives, and we just put together the best portfolio in our minds, how it's going to perform long-term. And then we also have short-term goals as well. So we separate the two just in case.
Sure. Could you speak a little bit about NFTs from an investment perspective?
Yeah. In terms of what in NFTs, because it's so diverse, like in terms of like crypto art, digital art, collectibles, trading cards. I think there's like two different kinds. Like there's different categories and different use cases, but there's ones that I think have actual value and ones that are just completely subjective. And it's like, I can't believe that sold for $7 million. Like there's a crypto punk that sold for like $7 million. And I just have no idea why. Like it's just art, I guess.
Rare attributes, supposedly.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's other things that have a little bit more value, like it's actual piece of real world lands that's a real estate put on the blockchain that sells, or it's has some unlockable content to meet a famous person, or you get a
So let's speak about the utility free art style NFTs, right? Because I think you and I can. What I'm really curious about is the perception of value and then the change in the perception of value. But when there are assets that are tied to real world goods or real world experiences, we can value them on the basis of their real utility. But I wonder just how you guys value, from an investment perspective, things that are free of utility and purely based on subjective value, possibly subjective value with low liquidity, and changing value based on perception. So it's a really wild investment class for me.
It is
like investing in art.
So let me break it down like this. So like in terms of like digital art, the only stuff we invested in terms of digital art had to do with artists we knew really well that had really strong but small followings that were grinding away at it. Like that's all they were going to do. We knew a couple of years ago those artists were going to do very well. So we loaded up on stuff like that early on, and that panned out really well. It's just really hit or miss, because unless you know the artist or you've been around them enough, and so a lot of them I've even had on the podcast, and it's awesome seeing them grow, because art, it's like anyone can create art. You can create a masterpiece, but if no one knows who you are, why would they buy it? But you could draw a doodle or a blue line through a black canvas, and if you're incredibly famous, someone's going to drop $1 million on it, right? So it's really, really subjective. So we're really careful what it is we buy in terms of art. But in terms of utility, you can look at things from, real estate to virtual real estate, like Decentraland, crypto voxels, things like that. And if you have a vision for VR and metaverse, type of thrills, there's a real strong future and proposition there that gives NFTs a lot of utility in terms of value as well. So there's some good plays there as well. And then collectibles is an interesting area. If it's like really popular and it's limited and it's been popular for a while, it might be a good investment. Like CryptoKitties, for example, it was like what one of the first ones, and it's been popular like ever since. And they've done fairly well and held their value and gone up. So that would present a good investment to consider versus, or CryptoPunks, for example, they've been around for a long time and are going up in value versus something that's brand new, because it's going to be in a very saturated space.
Mm-hmm.
So it's difficult to really gauge. It takes more than one conversation or one sit down to really figure out what it is. It takes many conversations to be like, okay, we're like 80% confident this will probably do well in a few years, or we're not so confident that that'll do well. Like, it's just, it feels like it takes so much more focus and research looking into it versus even investing and speculating in a shit coin in a lot of ways, because at least that you can predict to some degree what kind of hype cycle is going to push it, whereas you can't do that with NFTs.
Exactly. You can see the tokenomics, you can see the makeup of a team from a pure credentialing perspective. How are you going to credential an artist, and how are you going to see the tokenomics of an NFT? So what I'm hearing you say is, what some of your biggest successes in NFT investings have been in effectively helping artists break out, right? Getting in early, funding some of their very earliest projects. That seems like a really outsized opportunity for people. I'm hearing you say that the investments that are also holding stronger than the ones that have been around longest, and you've got your, whether CryptoKitties or CryptoPunks, which, I'm a fan of as well, are solid places to kind of put your investments. I wonder though, how do you think a bear market infects NFT investments? Because I wonder if they're going to be, they're going to face outsized appreciation.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think right now NFTs are still so damn early on, and it's really kind of a bubble at the moment. Like, I don't see them going anywhere. Like, I think they're going to be around indefinitely as much as Bitcoin will, because I think they're here to stay. I don't see them disappearing, and they have so many potential use cases that can do a lot of good. I just think it's super early, and if we were to go into some type of bearish cycle, or we had a downtrend, or something negative happened, or there was some regulations that came in terms of, NFTs versus other tokens because they're non-fungible and represent like property. I don't know how they rule on that or what they do. Then that's something that might really hurt the market in the short term, but it's a hell of an investment opportunity because I don't see it going anywhere. I just see it evolving and kind of rolling with the punches. I think we're just scratching the surface, because most NFTs, it's art and collectibles, to be honest. That's pretty much all it is. And then people creating their own art and their own collectibles. And that's great. The problem is it's oversaturated in those two categories. The real categories are going to be like, what kind of utility can you attach to it? If you're a music artist, can you attach your next hit single or album as unlockable content? Can you do something promotional? Can you sell a venue ticket to maybe like Burning Man or something like that? Or can you sell the ability to meet your favorite celebrity or artist as an unlockable content? Like, how much utility can you attach to it? Could it be real estate and real world land, or a car, or a title? Could it, it could be just about anything. Like, I think we're just stepping into the realm of what you do from a utility perspective and what you attach to it, to tie it back to the real world. That, and then metaverse and gaming, because I think that's the next level of economics that we're just starting to scratch the surface of as well. So I think that one's a bit more far off, maybe half a decade, maybe even an entire decade. But NFTs will have a huge role in terms of online digital gaming marketplaces, in-world items, and validity, and stuff like that. So it's another thing to consider investing in early while it's super cheap. But it's hit or miss. You got to just kind of buy a big bucket of stuff and put it away for a while if you go that route.
Sure enough. I can also see it becoming very useful in land rights, legal contracts, so many of these things that we're going to see NFTs kind of play a role in. It's a cool investment strategy. The NFT side, I haven't heard enough good takes on it.
Yeah, I'm most excited to see OpenSea diversify and allow Tezos NFTs, because I want to see how that affects the Ethereum NFTs and if it's actually popular. Because that'll determine whether or not we have these like chain wars, because like what's the chain wars going to be between Ethereum and everything else, like, because we've had all kinds of other use cases and nothing has really challenged Ethereum yet. Will it actually be NFTs? Will DeFi on a different chain take off? Will yield farming on a different chain take off? Like some niche is going to pop up that's going to challenge Ethereum and its status. I just don't think it's going to be displaced like super quickly. It's going to.
I agree with you.
But we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, seemingly the biggest reason to go to another chain right now is to capture yield that you can't get on Ethereum because it's been farmed out by too many converts.
Right.
So like the Cope airdrop brought so many people to Solana. It's crazy. Pancake Swap, yeah, like yield farming and liquidity providing brought some people over to BSC. But where would those? But like that's PayPal paying people $5 per user. You know, that's that same stuff as back in the day.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see where it goes, man.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I got to get going though. But dude, awesome conversation. Had a lot of fun talking about this stuff. It's not very often that you get to sit down and do that with ordinary people that you don't really know. So yeah, I appreciate the conversation. I'm sure a lot of other people will as well.
Yeah, I appreciate the take on how to invest in NFTs. That was an interesting one. I got to update my portfolio here to diversify a bit.
Yeah, man. Recommend it.
Thanks for your time, brother.